Let's add some music. Using your up arrow keys, move the playhead to the beginning of the Texas 2 shot. Play the clip and pause right after he says, "We just lose the war."
We win 90% of the battles. We just lose the war.
In the toolbar, click the Music Note button to bring up the Music and Sound browser. Clicking the pop-up menu at the top, you are given access to all your iLife sound effects, jingles, GarageBand projects, and iTunes libraries. Choose Jingles from the list. If you purchased a Mac within the past few years, more than likely these jingles will already be installed on your hard drive. If not, you can find the music files we'll be using in the music keyword collection in the event library. In the search field, enter Metal. 3 audio files matching this name appear in the pane. Select any of the audio files, then click the play button to preview the music. There are 3 versions of this jingle, and each are pre-edited to specific lengths. Before we add the music to the project, make sure snapping is enabled. You'll recall this is the blue button in the upper right of the timeline. Because the music bed needs to be at least 20 seconds to cover both interviews, drag the Metal Ceremony long music into the timeline below the primary storyline and move it until the clip's left edge snaps to the playhead. Play the scene back with the music.
We just lose the war.
We've done events like this in front of thousands and thousands of people. For them, it's a way.
Presently, the music and the audio from Dave's interview are fighting each other. Pardon the pun. We're going to lower the music so it won't compete with his voice. If you are coming from iMovie, this is called ducking the audio. In previous versions of Final Cut Pro, ducking was accomplished using keyframes. Final Cut Pro 10 still gives you the ability to use keyframes if you so choose, and we'll look at audio keyframes in a moment. However, there's an entirely new way to accomplish this using the Range Selection tool. You'll recall I mentioned in a previous lesson that the Range Selection tool was completely reimagined for Final Cut Pro 10, and now you'll get to see just how cool and useful it is. Before we go any further, zoom out a bit on your timeline so you can see most of the clips in your project. Place your skimmer at the frame just after the soldiers fire their weapons. Move your mouse over the music clip and press and hold R on your keyboard. The Selection tool temporarily transforms into the Range Selection tool. With your R key held down, drag to the right. A yellow selection box widens as you drag. Drag until the end of the selection range snaps to the end of the Steve interview clip. When you release your mouse, the Range Selection tool returns to the Selection tool. Now place your mouse over the volume bar, and when you see the resize pointer, drag downward until the tooltip reads -18 dB. If you look at both ends of the selection range, you'll see fades were automatically created within the selection. Let's play it back to hear the change.
We just lose the war.
We've done events like this in front of thousands and thousands of people. For them, it's a way to learn what living history is like.
If you care about where you live, then you want the representation of its history and the things about it to be told the right way.
The fades are created by these tiny white diamonds called keyframes. You can think of keyframes as essentially snapshots of a given volume at a specific point in time. 2 keyframes with different values placed at different points in time create the change. For example, if you place your mouse over the volume bar before the first keyframe, the volume reads 0 dB. If you place your mouse over the volume bar after the second keyframe, the volume reads -18 dB. So the audio ramps down from 0 to -18 between these 2 keyframes. The volume then holds at -18 before ramping back up to 0 again. You can control how fast or slow the volume changes by dragging the second keyframe earlier or later in time. To create a slower rate of change, drag the second keyframe away from the first keyframe. Play it back to hear the change.
We just lose the war.
We've done events like this in front of thousands and thousands.
To create a faster rate of change, drag the keyframe closer to the first keyframe. Keep adjusting the keyframe distance and playing back until you're happy with the result. You can also remove a keyframe. Select the fourth keyframe, then press Delete on your keyboard. Because the third keyframe is the same value as the previous keyframe, it will be ignored during playback. Let's create the fourth keyframe manually. Move your mouse over the volume bar, then press the Option key. When you see a diamond appear next to the selection arrow, click once to create a keyframe. Now drag upward on the keyframe until the value in the tooltip reads -10. The music is much longer than we need. Move your playhead to the edit point between the Steve interview and the Confederate charge clip. Select the music clip and press Option right bracket to trim the music to the playhead. Press your spacebar to play a few seconds of the Confederate charge clip. This scene is a perfect candidate for underscoring with some dramatic music. Press and hold Z on your keyboard to call up the zoom tool, and click a few times on the head of the clip to zoom in. Release the Z key to return to the selection arrow. If you look closely at the waveform, you'll see a noticeable dip. This is the point after which the officer yells, "Charge!" and just before the soldiers start whooping it up. This is where we'll place our next music cue. In the Music and Sound browser, type out MEM to bring up the memorial audio file. Drag it into the gray area below the video until its left edge snaps to the right edge of the previous music clip. Add 2 keyframes in the Confederate charge waveform right at the dip. Then drag the second keyframe until the value reads -10. Let's quickly drag a fade out on the outgoing music clip. Let's also do the same for the Confederate charge clip. Creating fades on the heads and tails of clips softens their exits and entrances and hides unwanted clicks or pops that might occur at the edit point. Play back this section starting from a few seconds before the end of the Steve interview clip.
Presentation of its history and the things about it to be told the right way.
In the previous lesson, I showed you an incredible new feature called auditioning. If you'll recall, we used this feature to experiment with different interview clips in the timeline, but this feature is also great for experimenting with different music cues. In the Music and Sound browser, type out soaring. Then drag the clip on top of the memorial clip in the timeline. When you see the clip turn white, release your mouse. From the Options menu, choose Replace and Add to Audition. In the blink of an eye, we now have completely different music to audition with our picture. Play the section back to hear how this new music works with the scene.
About it to be told the right way.
It's amazing to me how music dictates the emotion of a scene. This battle scene now has a Pickett's Charge feel to it, minus a few thousand extras, of course. To audition the previous music, make sure the clip is selected and press Ctrl right arrow. You can also click the audition badge at the top of the clip to bring up a window where you can use your mouse to select a music clip. Pick whichever music track you like best, then let's move on. In the next lesson, we'll continue focusing on Final Cut Pro's sound editing tools, particularly the enhancement features for sweetening your soundtracks.